Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Tuesday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel, and loaded up plenty of football thoughts today. Steve Marik from Hail Varsity going to join us as Nebraska keeps on keeping on in the portal. Our friend Mitch Sherman from The Athletic in about 20 minutes or so. And then a Tuesday with Kaz. I had to laugh today because, well... Eric Dickerson has a memoir coming out, the great back for the Rams, the finally College Football Hall of Famer, a subject of Podia Excess, the 30 for 30 about the Wild West and cheating of SMU, the dreaded payroll to meet by a bunch of J.R. Ewing types in the late 70s. And the joke was that Texas A&M tried to get Eric Dickerson a Trans Am. Well... there was some creative math that went on, and apparently Eric Dickerson's grandma got him the Trans Am, but it was financed by A&M. That urban legend has been revealed. That story was out, and an excerpt from his book made me chuckle today. What can you do back in the day of the NCAA when they had teeth? What's A&M going to do? Son, we're going to repo this Trans Am we illegally gave you. $50,000 cash later, but that was pretty funny. So we'll dive into some recruiting hijinks with Coach Kaz coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour. Numbers to dial up, get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com. Give us a follow on Twitter if you like, and follow ESPN Lincoln at Hail Varsity. Elijah's Twitter handle at Herbal Essence, and then at Schmidt Radio. Make that at Schmidt_radio for Chris Schmidt. Some more gets for Nebraska. We spent a lot of time on Chuba Purdy yesterday and what it means to grab him for Nebraska. And also today, the good news for Nebraska, JUCO defensive back Javier Morton has added to the secondary. Good size on him. We'll kind of break that down here in a moment. Nebraska basketball still breaking hearts, Elijah. Tough one against Indiana, their 8th straight conference loss, 78-71. It was there for the taking, but then Nebraska did Nebraska things. We'll hear from Coach Hoiberg in just a little bit here this segment. So going to dive in here, and let's big picture things as school's underway for Nebraska, winter conditioning, all that good stuff. You have 5 quarterbacks on campus. You have a pretty full running back room right now. There's still some pieces to be added on the offensive line. You lose a guy like Will Honus, and I know he's been oft injured, but man, he's a do-it-the-right-way type guy. So it's a situation where you, as a Nebraska fan, are cautiously optimistic about what the spring, the summer, and let's fast forward to fall, what it can be to finally get over that hump. And you've got a good situation at quarterback. Is that blind faith on my part? Probably, but there's a little substance to this right now with Mark Whipple. The combination you have with Whipple, you have the skill people that Coach Joseph's going to have a handle on. You know what Applewhite, you believe you know what Applewhite can do, and take it from Joe Glenn yesterday. You're getting a good one at running back coach to find 2 to 3 guys that can carry the football for you. And, a guy with the last name Ariola can be fierce for you on the offensive line where they're going to be physical and mean and open holes. But it really makes things go at quarterback, and you look at all the programs that have ascended to get over that hump. from a 10-2 or a 9-3 or an 8-4, and there's been lots of programs that have been hovering around that good to great, right? Think of K-State, right? Think of Kansas State and their ascension. This goes back a ways, but think of where they were at with a game changer and a Michael Bishop, right? They were number one in the country. Face mask included on Crouch, I get it, but K-State was damn good with Bishop. Before that was Chad May. Just going back to old school Big 8. Switzer always stack the quarterback spot with some magician that could run the wishbone. Coach Osborne did the same thing. When you get a Gill and when you get a Frazier and have a Behringer, and then you get a Scott Frost and then you get an Eric Crouch. I mean, the succession is what's the sustainability. Dabo, right? You have Deshaun for a while. Before that was Taj Boyd. And then you have Sunshine, right? And I always call him Sunshine. But Lawrence was big time, and he was really good as young as he was. But those are some examples. And then Bama made the shift from game manager to playmaker, and they've had a succession of quarterbacks. Same with Oklahoma, right? The 2.0 version of OU. So Nebraska's trying to find that difference maker at quarterback. And you had a guy that really came in and stabilized and did good things in the form of Zac Taylor. And then you have the Joey Gans. And then you had the Adrian Martinez. And then you had make that Taylor Martinez. First time in the history someone screwed that back up the other way. You had T-Magic, and then you had Tommy Armstrong, right? And now you have a situation right now where you lose a guy that's been here for a long time in Adrian. Well, you have 5 to choose from, and you've got to go develop one to be the guy, and then you got to have a solid backup, and you need 3. Okay, you have 5. You don't want to run anyone off, but that just isn't the world of college football right now. And for Nebraska and Coach Whipple in this offense, we'll get into this with Mitch Sherman. What do the prospects look like for Nebraska? On paper and on film, it looks really good to have a guy like Casey Thompson because of his experience and his accuracy and his poise coming in. Big picture, you look at a guy and all of the upside, the ceiling for a guy like Purdy. I'm still a big Harburg guy. He's a local kid, and he has some physical tools that I think could be pretty big time. What we don't know is the patience and the perseverance part in today's climate and portal, Elijah. That's it. You can have a lot of good quarterbacks stick out, stay, get better, wait their turn. You can count on one hand how many guys have, air quote, waited their turn and kept getting better and better and better. I think you see it in the form of Pickett recently with Pitt. I think you see it in the form of a guy in Mac Jones that only started 1 year at Alabama, but he was behind some really, really incredible quarterbacks that we just highlighted and detailed. But Mac was a guy that waited his turn, but not many do. I'm wondering if Nebraska can be different in that way. Not only get a game changer at quarterback to run this offense, like a Mariota or a Milton, someone of that ilk that's that talented, but can you go get a quarterback and then that second quarterback that's ready to take the air quote handoff when whoever starts, their time is up. That'll be big time. That'll be difference making, and you got to get it on solid ground and at a high level, bowl eligible or better level for 2022. But let's think bigger picture there, because you have 5 and they're all going to compete their butt off and they all have strengths, but there can only be one guy, and Whipple needs to find that one guy and then a 1B.
And you say 5, but really you could count 6. Because Richard Torres come back off the knee injury, and then you also have Matt Masker, neither of whom are really
You're not planning on next year.
No, I'm not planning on having these guys be a part of the quarterback competition come fall camp. But when you think who is going to be a part of that competition, I think there's 4 guys that realistically are going into spring ball thinking, I need to go in there and put my best foot forward because I want to be a part of this quarterback competition. It's going to be Casey Thompson, Chubba Purdy, it's going to be Logan Smothers, and it's going to be Heinrich Harburg. Those are going to be the 4 guys coming into spring ball that are going to say, I need to show what I'm worth right now to let these coaches know I need to be part of this quarterback competition come fall camp. And you got to think it's 2, maybe 3 guys that are realistically going to be part of this quarterback competition come fall camp, whether it be by attrition, whether it be by the coaches just deciding, you know what, these are the 3 guys we're going to work on developing the most in fall camp and see what we can get out of them. But you can't have a really, I would say, a 4-man quarterback competition in fall camp because you need to start getting your starter reps with the first teamers. You really need to have a short list of guys you think it could be, and I think it's either Smothers, Thompson, or Purdy. I guess we haven't seen much of Harburg, so we don't know. But you got to think it's going to be one of those 3 guys trying or that's going to differentiate themselves in spring ball and say, I want to be number 1 in the depth chart entering fall camp. And I couldn't give you a name out of those 3, which I think is the favorite. I mean, Thompson because of his starting experience.
Thompson's your favorite,
but coming into a new offense, you kind of have to throw all that out.
Well, you're not gonna.
He's got the experience. I'll give you that.
No, he's got the experience and he's got the accuracy, and there's the expectation, his and probably the coaches, that you're going to be our starter because we lost a 4-year guy, and that's it. And that's the big difference maker is you go get a guy with experience to come in, even though it's a new setting, a new scene, a new offense. Go do your thing. Now, best case scenario is you have a guy like Casey win the job outright, leave no doubt, gives you the best chance to win, can make throws, not have turnovers, run the offense, and score enough points and stay healthy in the Big Ten. But honestly, from an experience and although it's a new system, a guy that's familiar, guys that on the team root for, you'd hope that Smothers, while you don't want to be a backup, if you get beat out fair and square in the race, does he go somewhere else and find a spot? I'm not worried if that answer is yes. I'm not going to judge and hate on that. I get it. But it'd be really cool to have him as a guy with minimal, but at least 1 game starting experience to be a backup. And then you've got your 2 developmental guys. I mean, Harburg's been here a little while, but COVID year's screwy. Last year's last year, and then now you have the transition. So it's kind of starting at square one again. But the guy that I don't want to lose most right now is Harburg. If I'm putting a Nebraska fan hat on and I'm calling it like, okay, let's just project arm talent, upside, all that stuff. The local side, put that off to the side here, being a Nebraska kid. I just think Harburg, sky's the limit for him with his size, his talent, and his ability. And then you pair it with Whipple. I think Purdy's a nice get. It's a splash. It's a Florida State guy. It's number 6 ranked overall dual threat guy. It's a guy that's been injured, and I think Purdy can be really good. And I think he'd be really, really good paired with Whipple. But Nebraska is in a great spot where there'll be competition and there'll be some talent backing up whoever wins. It's just got to get kind of fast-tracked. Let's get to basketball. We'll spend a few more minutes on this here in about 20 minutes. But Coach Hoiberg, after last night, end-of-game issues, the problem for Nebraska, we'll detail it here a little further. But you know what? Nebraska had chances. They had it cut down to 5, and they'd get a stop, and then they would go Nebraska with their decision-making and would force it. They were so best way I can put it is they were so excited to try and keep the momentum going. Their decision making, they got caught up in shot selection or lack thereof. Right? You forced things, you took bad shots, you didn't execute, and a 4-point deficit or a 5-point deficit turned into 7 because you had those 4 to 5 point possession swings where you get a stop, you go down. You screw up on the offensive possession, boom, Indiana takes the basketball on a turnover or a rebound, comes back down and drills a shot, and then you you're still climbing that mountain. And it is just how Nebraska basketball is this year. Here's Coach Hoiberg.
Proud of the guys for hanging in there, keeping us going. Had a couple possessions. Our ball hit every part of the rim. Those are deflating possessions when everything feels perfect coming off your hand. The thing does everything but go in. Those are deflating. But our guys kept competing. They kept battling through it. Made the decision not to foul up 6. I thought Trey made a great defensive play. Unfortunately, they called a foul on him. But we get that steal. We come down. We got timeouts. We can set up our press. Unfortunately, didn't get the call down there at the end. But having Trey out there was a great lift. You see how much better we are with his intensity, with his leadership, with his passion on the defensive end of the floor. I thought Alonzo had great pressure on the ball, getting deflections. I think 9 steals we had on the night. And, again, Trey just gives us a whole different element out there, being able to put him either on the ball or on the other team's best defender. That's going to be huge for us moving forward.
So we'll have more from Coach Hoiberg on McGowan's return, and good on him, man. He's a warrior. You got to love his effort and intensity. But what it came down to for Nebraska basketball was bad shots, and you see that routinely. It's not uncommon. You shouldn't be shocked that this team takes bad shots in key moments. That is their identity. They just will foul, or there'll be a breakdown defensively, or there'll be some management at bad times, and it prevented a chance to get a win against a winless road team in the Big Ten. And it's either I think I can make this play for the team, or I want to make this play for the team, and it just doesn't go the right way.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back in Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. We're efforting Mitch Sherman. You can email the show, chris@hailvarsity.com, and dial up 466-3776, 466-3776. 800-825-5865, as we'll check in with Mitch in a moment. Mitch had a great story last week on many of Zac Taylor's teammates. And right now you look at Nebraska's first full weekend back on campus, and you have a number of Nebraska players and coaches providing some energy, right? That's a good opening sentence or two from Mitch in his story. We'll get into some of the additions via the portal for Nebraska football. You can find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence on Twitter, and also check out the SoundCloud that gives us the 2-minute drill each day. Some highlights, some interviews, some excerpts from today's show. Talking Husker basketball, as there were moments Nebraska in late game management that just wasn't good enough. You look at some of the mistakes Nebraska made, specifically a chance to respond. And there's Nebraska had moments here. Bryce McGowan's pulling Nebraska within 71-65, a sweet dunk. And then you get a steal. That steal was very impressive by Derek Walker, who battled foul problems all night long. And then you go down, and what happens? Well, you had a turnover on Verge. And I feel like poor Verge is code for piñata, okay? So Price, the reality is this, and someday Nebraska will meet that price they continue to hand out to other teams with decision-making, management, fouls, just decision-making. You get more free throws here by McGowan's as Nebraska crawls back within 6, and you get another missed layup. Not a turnover, but a missed layup by Verge. And this was tough. This was kind of an angled, off-the-window situation and you get the offensive rebound by Lat. He was hanging around, and you kick it out. And Elijah, we get to the point where you kick out to Bryce, and instead of driving again to get downhill, what's he do? He launches a really long three. And when push comes to shove, this team reverts back to what their identity is, and that is selfish. So let's get an update on Mitch here. What's going on?
The studio phone isn't letting us dial out of the studio right now, so I have sent a text message to Mitch, and we are trying to skirt around the technical difficulties.
So let's hear a little bit more from Hoiberg as he dove in a little bit in on Trey McGowan's his return.
For Trey, as I talked to him and, having an opportunity in my career to come back from a long layoff, it's all about going out there and letting the game come to you and making simple plays. And I thought Trey did a great job of that tonight. And, stepping up and knocking down that first three, knocking down all his free throws, and then, again, giving us that huge lift. As far as his minute load, we talked about anywhere from 16 to 22. Going into that, we have a chip that our guys wear underneath their jerseys. When I met with RJ, our trainer, at halftime, he said his load was in a perfect spot, and we could up his minutes by about 3 in the second half. So that's where the decision was, to get him up, I believe, over 21, right in line with where we wanted his load to be. So it's great to have Trey back out there on the floor, and just got to continue to grind. We got a great opportunity this week. Going to have a good practice time. Our guys start school tomorrow. It's their mandatory off day. But then we get 3 really good opportunities to practice, which we haven't had a lot because of either, didn't get back from West Lafayette because of a flight delay or a mechanical issue, and, with games being right on top of each other. So we'll get 3 good days of practice heading into Ohio State and hopefully be able to clean some things up.
Okay, that is enough Nebraska basketball talk. We welcome in Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Mitch, thanks for the time. Sorry about the tardiness there, but let's get back into Nebraska football here. And the Big Red's been doing some wonderful work in the portal. And, Mitch, I got to ask you this, and thanks for joining us here. Let's start with the offense here. We know there's a lot of quarterbacks to choose from, Bud, but what do you envision the Whipple-Frost cohesion to look like offensively? What's that identity going to look like?
I don't think we're going to know until August. I wrote about this today in the story that I published on Chubba Purdy coming in now to join Casey Thompson in the quarterback picture. And, the question is, who's the best fit for the Frost Whipple offense in 2022? And I think we need to know before we can even get into that question is, what is the Frost Whipple offense? And we're not going to get a great sense of that in the spring. We're not going to get a great sense of that on April 9th when you've got a bunch of people in the stadium and a scrimmage on TV, even through August. Perhaps with some of the, some of the things that are said about personnel decisions leading up to the season opener, you'll be able to get a feeling. And you can, of course, look at Mark Whipple's offense at Pitt, most recently seeing what he did with Kenny Pickett, the kind of passing game that they featured, and then also, meshing with what Scott Frost likes to do with his quarterbacks and with the offense at Nebraska. Certainly saw Frost incorporate the option and more QB run into the system this year. But, how does that stay with Mark Whipple coming in and Mark Whipple presumably calling the plays? We're not going to know. We're not going to know until we get into the season, I would say.
Time will tell with it. What do you think of the quarterback room? I'm not asking you to handicap the favorite here as winter conditioning's going on, but we know what Thompson's shown in the Big 12. You got Purdy coming in that is got a high ceiling, and Smothers has been on campus, and of course Harburg and Torres, the part of the early signing period. I'm the one quarterback I'm really excited to see work with Whipple is going to be Harburg. That's who I'm picking. What quarterback are you most excited to see?
Yeah, I think long term Harburg really fascinating with his size and his arm and what he can do. There's the question of how long Mark Whipple's going to be at Nebraska, and whether he'll ever get to the point, whether he's a success or the opposite of that in his time at Nebraska. Is he ever going to get to the point where he works through these transfers and Heinrich Haarberg gets an opportunity to be the guy? I mean, who knows? It could be fast. It could be this year. Any of the quarterbacks. Presumably it won't be Richard Torres, but any of the others, have an opportunity to be able to win this job. Or I don't think they would even be staying through the spring. Even in the case of Haarberg, who was recruited by a different quarterbacks coach to run something of a different system. After 1 year, if the whole thing had changed in his mind and he didn't have an opportunity, there's not a whole lot of reason to stick around. So the same goes for sure for Logan Smothers. So I think all of those guys have a chance, but I would say that when it comes to Haarberg, he's the least likely, I think, to be taking reps with the number one offense when spring practice opens. I think the other three all are going to get looks right away with behind Nebraska's first offensive line, whatever that is, and that's an entirely different conversation that's equally as important. But yeah, I mean, long term, if they're both in Lincoln, Haarberg and Whipple, I think, is a really intriguing pairing because of what Whipple likes to do with his quarterbacks and everything that's there on the upside for Heinrich Haarberg as a big, strong, mobile, athletic quarterback.
Mitch Sherman, few minutes with us here on Hail Varsity Radio at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. Read him with The Athletic. And Mitch, a thought here with the running back room. And I know Nebraska had some issues with the portal and A&M's Jackson, but Nebraska able to pick up a big-time get with the New Mexico Military Institute JUCO player, running back 1,700 yards. Is nothing to sneeze at. How do you feel about the running back room? Again, we're all saying, yes, the O-line's got to be money, but you've got options at quarterback, and you've got, it feels like a pretty full running back room with some experience there in Ramir. And, of course, Johnson coming in from Minnesota, and some guys that are still around that can make a push.
Yeah, Anthony Grant, the JUCO transfer from New Mexico Military, won a junior college national championship. A kid from Georgia, like Gabe Ervin. Gabe Ervin is maybe a guy that could get overlooked coming out of 2021 because of the injury that he suffered. But, we remember last spring when he was the talk of camp, and that extended into August and into the early portions of the season. We did see some good things out of him before the injury. And with another year after he rehabs, with whatever he's been able to continue to learn about playing at this level as he rehabs and has already rehabbed. And then, the next set of chores for him will be to put him on even playing field with the rest of the backs, and that they're all going to be learning a new system. I'm interested to see what Gabe Ervin does in year two, and he's maybe a dark horse to be the top guy. Ramir Johnson would be probably the favorite because of the way that he emerged last season. But, he has limitations. He's not as much of a between-the-tackles guy as some of the others in that running backs room, although he showed that he's capable of doing that. I just don't think at his size that going through the Big Ten, you're going to continue to put him in that position and have him be effective. He got a little bit beat up at the end of the season. Yant is intriguing if he stays in shape, and what another season could be for what another year in the program could mean for him. It's wide open, really. Probably more so than the quarterbacks. You said you wouldn't want to put a favorite tag on anybody here in January in the quarterbacks room. Well, I think with Casey Thompson, it's fair to do that because of his age and his experience and what he did last year and starting 10 games at Texas. Not to say that he's a heavy favorite, but he's definitely the guy probably in the driver's seat going into this thing. And I don't know if there is that player at running back. I don't know if I would characterize Ramir Johnson in that same way. because of all of the physical gifts that the players behind him, including Grant, the newcomer out of JUCO, appear to have. So it's going to be much like last year, where Ryan Held, the running backs coach, wanted to learn a lot about his group in spring practice, and then didn't get that opportunity because of a number of those players being injured. It really set that group back through the off season. And you hope if you're Brian Applewhite that you've got all of those legs available and ready to run in those 15 practices that are upcoming.
Mitch, I'm up against a hard break. I need 2 minutes on the other side to talk Bengals. Can we?
Yeah, we can do that.
All right,
sure.
Hang on, bud.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Couple extra minutes, some overtime with Mitch Sherman, Hail Varsity Radio. Follow Mitch on Twitter at Mitch Sherman from The Athletic. Mitch, really enjoyed your story as you caught up with some of Zac Taylor's teammates last week. Bengals on to week 2 of the NFL. And it's really awesome. It would have been fun last Saturday to be out at the bars with old Zac for one last time.
Yeah, he went to the bar after the game, and he said in the locker room that he wanted to give the game ball to the city of Cincinnati. So, that was a good way to do it, to just go to the bar and bring the ball. It'd be interesting to see if that becomes a tradition. And I know Cincinnati wants there to be the opportunity for it to become a tradition, because it would mean more playoff wins starting this Saturday against the top-seeded Tennessee Titans. So quite a story for the 38-year-old former Nebraska quarterback to be in this position at this point in his career, his first head coaching job, to have now won the first game in the playoffs for the Bengals since 1991. Incredible to see, and it was enjoyable for me in putting that story together last week ahead of that playoff game, to talk to Joe Gans and Corey Ross and Jay Moore and Zach Potter, Tim Cassidy, the former associate AD who was Bill Callahan's right-hand man. And people have their thoughts, mostly not great, about Bill Callahan and his time at Nebraska. He was not the right fit at the right time to be the Nebraska coach long-term. And that's really not debatable. But the 2 years that Zac Taylor was his quarterback were 2 pretty good years, especially in the context of what Nebraska is going through right now. They won 8 and 9 games or 9 and 8 in 2005 and 2006, and Zac set the school record for career touchdown passes despite being in Lincoln for just 2 years. It set him on his path to get into coaching, and ultimately to get to this place with the Bengals and be united with Joe Burrow, who of course has his own set of Nebraska connections through his family. So really a fun story to watch in Lincoln and around Nebraska for Zac to be doing what he's doing at this age, at any age, really.
Yeah, how many converted Bengal fans are there now? You've got Vikings and Broncos and Chiefs fans all over, and Green Bay fans, of course, but there's a lot. There might be an internet run on Bengal gear.
Yeah, for sure. I got one in my house. I got a converted Bengals fan in my house. My wife is a Zac Taylor fan and a Sarah Taylor fan. They worked together for a really short period of time at Nebraska, my wife and Sarah, we've followed Zac's career and his life and the birth of their 4 kids, from his time at Texas A&M to Miami, and he was at the University of Cincinnati, and then with the Rams and Sean McVay before he got this job. So I don't think that she is alone. That Shannon, my wife, is alone in being a converted Cincinnati Bengals fan. They're an easy team to root for when you look at that young roster, and the guy in the head coach's seat is playing a big role in that.
Mitch, we'll let you go. Thanks for your time today, bud, and great stuff.
Yep, good to talk to you. Thanks, Chris.
Take care. Mitch Sherman with us. Hail Varsity Radio. Mitch with The Athletic at Mitch Sherman on Twitter. So you have Bill Conley that came out with games of the year. You had your top 50 countdown, and it was a special type of hell when you're Nebraska and you have your own section. your own section in college football's 50 best games of 2021. Bill starts out with some of the Big 12 classics, okay? And then you shift on down, mid-40s to, like 5 of them, right? And you were there. You were watching. Some of you went on the road for them. He's like, then there's Nebraska. A whole new twist and turn to the most interesting and agonizing 3-9 football team. Elijah, this is pretty crazy. It's remarkable to see again, even though we all kind of lived it between the Big 12 classics, and then you say, oh yeah, the Nebraska losses. No way a 3-9 team ever unlike any other, right? You have a top 40 caliber team that kept finding ways to lose. Oklahoma, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Michigan, Nebraska, Sparty, Nebraska, Iowa, Nebraska. To have your own section in top 50 games of 2021 is an honor and a curse. And it's now highlighted forever. I can't tell you which one's more painful. I mean, we kind of had this talk in the fall, but now you step back from it for a little bit. And you're like, well, you could make an argument for all of them.
If it wasn't so painful, it'd almost be funny.
It'd be funny if it was somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? If it's somebody else, when it comes to close losses.
It's incredible how it just permeates throughout the whole university, too. It's like the Husker football team losing all these close games to good teams, but they can't find a way to win at the end. The Husker basketball team in close games at the end against good teams, they can't find a way to do it. It's so incredible and so almost bizarre how it's afflicting the major men's Nebraska sports.
Yeah.
I mean, you can even throw in the regional against Arkansas.
Well,
if you want to talk baseball, they had a lead going into the 7th inning.
No, I get it, and I don't quite throw baseball in there because baseball had a lot of impressive wins. They went and took a game, right, from the get-go against Arkansas. And to be quite frank with you, you had some, and I know you're an umpire, but you had some, and I don't like blaming officials either, trust me, because it's open season on whether you wear an ump mask or a striped shirt on the football field or the basketball court. It is open season, some of it deserved, but that was some squeezing to this day going on, and you and your mustache. You're already in mid-season form with the stash. You are so ready to call balls and strikes. I get it. And there were some calls, obviously, JoJo in Michigan, and the no call at the goal line where poor Betts got mugged. I get it. It wasn't all perfect, but Nebraska baseball is clearly like they're in quarantine from the other men's sports, thank God. We'll wind down hour one. Coming up, Steve Marik from Hail Varsity. A Tuesday with Kaz, Rick Kaczenski on the way. Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbel. And big thanks to Mitch Sherman. That'll be up. It is up on the ESPN Lincoln on-demand section on ESPNLincoln.com. Also, check it out on Twitter at ESPN Lincoln. A reminder about buckling up. Game preparation and, of course, repetition predict success and winning. Drivers and vehicle passengers who always use their seatbelts will increase their survival chances if a crash should happen. Remember to always buckle up. A message from the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Okay, so you can pick one game this weekend to go to. I can't send you, otherwise I would. But what are you feeling here? Do you want to see Tampa? Do you want to see the Bills in Kansas City. That'd be easier to go to. What's the matchup this weekend you're most excited about? We're going to catch up with our old buddy Searles to get some NFL thoughts on Thursday for the playoff weekend.
I think Bengals-Titans sounds like a real... there's not a bad matchup in the AFC. There's really not a bad matchup across the entire division around this weekend. You can't go wrong with this choice here, I don't think, because LA and Tampa Bay is going to be incredible. Great game.
It's going to be fun.
San Fran and Green Bay is even going to be fun because it feels like San Francisco's been hitting their stride at the right time, but now they got to go march into Lambeau. What a place to go watch a playoff game that is, Lambeau Field. That'd be incredible. Kansas City at home, hosting the Buffalo Bills. That's going to be a fun one with Josh Allen. 2 gunslingers coming to town. Or I guess one gunslinger coming to town, one staying at home, but you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. With 2 of the brightest young quarterbacks. And then speaking of bright young quarterbacks, you have the top young quarterback, I'd say, in the league in Joe Burrow, heading down to Tennessee, taking on the 1 seed in Derrick Henry. There's not a bad game this weekend in my book. I don't think you can go wrong.
No, it's going to be pretty big time. And I know, man, I tell you what, Sunday went to a local watering hole. And I didn't know I knew so many Cowboy fans. Like Coach Brett's a big Dallas fan. Uncle Andy was waving his Cowboys flag. Like had it out. Front doorstep a block away. And his 2 little gals say, "How about them Cowboys?" Right? And then I get to this bar I'm at, and all of Carson's buddies' dads, some of our friends and good folks, they're all Dallas fans from back in the day, the Irvin Emmett Aikman era. You know, the White House and bales of cocaine. The Nate Newtons and I'm like, my Lord, all of you are Cowboy fans, and I mean, Uncle Andy's all good because his mom and Jay Novacek grew up together, so he's all good. That's kind of birthright inheritance type deal, right? You grow up on a ranch, and there's Jay Novacek's joint. Okay, cool. So yeah, you can rock the Novacek jersey. No worries, man. The pride of Gothenburg in Wyoming. But man, there's a lot of closet Cowboy fans, and immediately San Francisco drive 1, 7-0. Drive 2, more points. I mean, it was bring another round of Coors for the Cowboy fans. They knew how it was going to go, and then towards the end, they're right there, and then mismanagement, right? Steve Marik, HailVarsity.com and magazine. Next hour, 2 on the way.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Back into it at Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery, and going to talk some Husker football here and some hoops and some baseball. Steve Marik with HailVarsity.com and magazine. And Steve, busy time for Nebraska football. The portal is never off, right? It's like those neon signs you see in bars or the old no vacancy at the roadside motel. Your take here, 1 to 10 scale, your level of shock. Nebraska got 2 quarterbacks here this extended recruiting season. Did you think they'd pull it off?
Yeah. So I guess with Casey Thompson and Chuba Purdy, both those guys had been named, I guess, rumored for a long time before they actually committed. So I guess, like me personally, I always kind of figured that they might that might be a possibility that the Huskers would get both of them. But now that they have, I mean, you've got to be impressed, really, honestly. And looking at just what Nebraska has in the fold right now with Mark Whipple, I think he brings kind of a different level that kids really gravitate to with getting in there and being coached by a guy like Coach Whipple. That's got to speak volumes, and these kids they want to be taught by him and play under him, and they saw what he did with Kenny Pickett, and they want to be the next Kenny Pickett too. So it's something that I think the Huskers wanted, as much competition as they could within the quarterback room. But to get both of them, that's absolutely excellent. I think they're right on track for accomplishing what they want to accomplish this offseason.
Steve, a thought with that Whipple personality and resume, right? It's one thing to have the resume, which Coach Whipple does between Ben Roethlisberger, and then from a recency standpoint, you mentioned Pickett. That's a wonderful, wonderful timeline. But it seems like his personality is, just in the few times we've been with him, just kind of laid back but assertive. So it's not just, your favorite uncle, so to speak. But, man, it sounds like he's a guy that can not only develop in season and coach you hard when he needs to, but also lets you get comfortable. And I think that's a big thing between his prospects and his history. He's had a pretty good comfort level with the kids he's worked with.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, when I think back the first time that we saw and kind of interviewed Coach Whipple, Chris, you were there as well that day in Memorial Stadium. Two things that jumped out with me was kind of his attitude. Like you said, he was laid back, but at the same time, you could tell that there was an edge there. And I think that's something that's really going to go a long way with these new addition quarterbacks that Nebraska is bringing in, and the other two with Logan Smothers and Heinrich Haarberg. I found it pretty interesting, and it was kind of a good story that Whipple was telling about how, he's never met a really good quarterback that he's worked with in his long career that wasn't a prick. He said that, and everybody at the table kind of started giggling and laughing. But, it's true.
He's right.
Yeah, he's absolutely right. He said that, Ben Roethlisberger, Tom Brady, he's worked with a lot of great quarterbacks, and they've just been pricks, all of them. And that just really kind of spoke to, this guy really knows his stuff, and he's absolutely correct in thinking that too. And so, yeah, it's just, with him in the fold, and another thing, another story that he kind of said that kind of resonated with me was, he's not going to try to fit that, square peg in the round hole type thing. He's gonna learn what these quarterbacks in his quarterback room can do well, and he's not going to make them do what they're not comfortable with play calling wise. So just listening to him talk about football and how he's going to go about things, it really kind of makes me feel better about the direction of that quarterback room and kind of the quarterback play going into the 2022 season here.
Steve, I know that quarterback is what's going to be taking all the headlines, but there was really a lot of transfer portal additions throughout the entire offense. So I want to get your take as we're going into spring ball. What would you say that the position group that you're most interested in offense is going to be, just in terms of who ends up starting, who ends up looking good in spring, and who gets some momentum going into fall camp?
Yeah, I think one of the more fun transfer additions, I think, is Trey Palmer, that former, according to some recruiting sites, five-star athlete from LSU. He, put some tape on him, and man, that kid can fly. I think, once Trey Palmer steps on campus, and he might already be here, he's automatically one of the top athletes on the entire football team. I really like Trey Palmer and what he brings in, as both a receiver and kick returner. So the receiver, I guess, would be one of the positions that I'm really kind of excited about and wanting to get some kind of eyeballs on, because they've got a really good room and a really diverse room that's full of potential that hasn't really shown it yet here. But with Mickey Joseph in the fold here, who knows how that can go. But yeah, the receiver room, and then I've always kind of kept an eye on the offensive line, because for all these guys to work and for all these cool kind of special skill players that they're getting, the offensive line, if that doesn't mesh and it doesn't go well in 2022, all the skill talent's not going to really matter, at least in my opinion. So with Donovan Raiola trying to figure out who's going to play center, what other kind of pieces on that offensive line they can get through the transfer portal. I know they got a couple already, but they probably want to add a little bit more going on here. So, I think the offensive line is going to be a really key one to keep an eye on here.
Nebraska lost Eastern Mississippi, I think, prospect to LSU. And that was a bit of a blow. They were hoping to get him on campus last weekend. Didn't happen.
On Shorts, I believe,
Shorts.
Right?
I was going to say, was it Short or Shorts? But he's off to the Bayou. So does Nebraska have some other guys on radar, Steve, or is it a situation where, okay, they've got who they've got, winter conditioning starts up, you still have signing day here, the second one coming up in February, and they'll look maybe either there or potentially after spring, after some guys try and defect from spring. My long question, shorter version here. Is Nebraska done on the O-line or not? Do you think they go after some more kids?
Oh, I think they absolutely want to go after more kids for sure. With the kind of make or break season that Scott Frost is going into with 2022, he needs all the help that they can get on that offensive line because, like I was just saying, with all this impressive and talented skill players that they're bringing in, none of it's really going to matter if they can't block for them. So I think I'm not really quite sure how far along they are with some other possible transfer additions, but the offensive line is really an area to look at and keep an eye on, and it's just really important as we head to the 2022 season here.
Let's touch on JUCO defensive back Javier Morton committing to Nebraska. I made that announcement, and pretty good watch on Twitter. 6'2", 185, took his official visit over the weekend, and Georgia Tech was in the mix, but this was a guy that had more than 30 offers in high school. You factor in Tommy Hill from Arizona State, Deshaun Singleton. Nebraska's loaded back up, Steve, in that secondary. While you have some guys that have done a good job with their current role that can maybe take a step forward with winning a starting spot, Coach Fish hasn't been resting at all. What do you like about this addition here with Morton?
Yeah, so one thing I kind of noticed when he popped up through this whole transfer process was his size. I mean, he's got another defensive back in Travis Fisher's room that is over 6 feet tall. Like you said, he's 6'2", 185 pounds, and that fits right along with almost everybody else at safety and corner. I really just, as a football fan, I love big DBs. It's kind of just a weird thing with me. I like when the DBs are over 6 feet tall when they're 6'1", 6'2". It's kind of more of like a NFL style defensive backfield that they're trying to build over there at Nebraska, and I think that's really cool. Look at Quentin Newsome; he's around 6'1". Tyreek Johnson, who's trying to crack the lineup, that transferred from Ohio State, he's over 6 feet too. And look at the other junior college guy with Javier Morton that they brought in, Deshaun Singleton. He's about 6'3" and over 200 pounds too. So it's just a Big Ten backfield that Travis Fisher is building, and it's hopefully these guys can flip their hips and run with receivers. But yeah, it's one thing that I've noticed right away is these size of these DBs, and hopefully they can come down and be physical in the run game too.
Few minutes left here, Steve. Before we switch gears, I want to ask about elsewhere on that defense. There's already been Tommy Hill, the addition from Arizona State in the secondary room, and Huskers doing some work there. But elsewhere on the defense, not much in the way of transfer portal additions along the defensive line and the linebacker core. Would you say that's a reason for concern, knowing how many guys Nebraska is losing, especially along that defensive front, and already seeing Nebraska lacked a pass rush for most of last season?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point with that defensive line, because they are losing three big, starters, you could call them, with Ben Stille, Damian Daniels, and then even DeAndre Thomas, who's a key rotation guy down there too. So now you're looking at guys that are hoping to take the leap and take a leap and a bigger step in 2022. Guys like Ty Robinson, Jordan Riley, Casey Rogers, Nash Hutmacher, some young guys too. But yeah, I think that it would do good. It would do good for Nebraska to try to find a big 300-pounder like Damian Daniels is, to kind of just provide more depth and a bigger body down there for that will help in clogging up the run game. So those two middle linebackers and Luke Reimer and Nick Henry can rack up all those tackles just like they did last year. So, but yeah, I definitely think there might be some options in the transfer portal with the D tackles coming here forward, but we'll see how it all plays out. But yeah, that's absolutely a key position for them, is trying to find a guy that can kind of step into that role that Damian Daniels did so well last year.
Steve, Husker baseball thoughts, no preseason ranking. Will Bolt's all about gritty over pretty. That said, you had a team with a bunch of momentum, and they're going to use this as the disrespect card. I mean, they'll play hard anyway, but I know how they'll channel it. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one thing. This will be my first season covering Will Bolt and the Huskers, and that's absolutely right. You bring up a great point with, if Will Bolt could start the season every single year unranked, I'm sure he'd want that, because that just puts a chip on his team's shoulder, and I just think that they're going to perform so much better, I think, with kind of keeping that in the back of their minds, because kids, they use anything to get up for games and kind of want to put it to people on the season if they feel like they're disrespected, whether they are or not, whether rankings can do that or not. So yeah, if anything, I'm sure Will Bolt kind of likes the fact that he's going to head into the season unranked by some publications.
Yeah, but Steve, on the other hand, this Nebraska baseball team was a team that really exceeded expectations last season, and they lost some key contributors to the MLB draft last season. So how difficult is it going to be for them to live up to expectations when you add to the fact that Nebraska fans are really looking for something to pride themselves on, so they're going to have pretty high expectations for this baseball team playing in the Big Ten?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's another great point. And, just look at across the lineup of what they're going to be replacing. I think it's the entire outfield and some of the infield positions too, and not to mention the starting rotation and bullpen too. There's just a lot of holes to fill from last season's team that did so well. So yeah, it's going to be a process, I guess, and something that Coach Bolt is going to use the early part of the season to help kind of just play around with different lineups, try kids at different spots, things like that, and kind of see if he can make and settle on his best lineup that he can, for the conference season, and just, have things set so when the end of the season is coming around, he's playing his best ball.
Steve, last thought here, about a minute, bud. Steve Marik with us, HailVarsity.com and magazine, covers football, of course, women's basketball, Husker baseball, at Steve_Marik. Follow him on Twitter. Nebraska gets Rutgers at home Thursday night. Chance to take out some frustration. It's been right there for Nebraska. Great win over Michigan. A couple of tough ones against Iowa, and then the Indiana near miss. Yeah,
absolutely. Rutgers coming to town, and Amy Williams after the game at Iowa on Sunday, that second straight loss to the Hawkeyes. She was very, very complimentary of Rutgers, even though they haven't won a conference game yet. They have one of the better defenses in the Big Ten, so she was very complimentary of what the Scarlet Knights are doing on that end. But yeah, you're right. This is an opportunity to get the ship on the right track here and get things settled down and get another win under the belt and stop this losing streak. And Rutgers is going to be an opponent that can have that happen against. So yeah, it's going to be, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with those two guards that missed that Iowa game with Sam Hyde with that shoulder injury and just safety protocols. So yeah, hopefully everything will get back to normal and they can get a winner under their belt.
Steve, thanks for the extended time today, bud. We'll let you get back to it, and we'll talk again. Thanks so much.
Yep, thank you, Chris, and congratulations.
Thank you.
He's in his 30s, but sounds like he was born with a stogie in one hand and a brew in the other.
Now, say my name.
It's Schmitty on Hail Varsity Radio.
I got the body of a taut, preteen Swedish boy.
Back into it at Tail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Time for a Tuesday with Kaz, Nebraska and Iowa defensive line coach Rick Kaczenski. Kaz, what do you know? I'm going to ask you how the weather is because I can brag about it being 60 degrees today.
Whew, yeah, not 60 down here, man. So got some unseasonably cold weather for the cracks. So up in Greenville, we got an office up there. I mean, they had shut down a lot of the doctors' offices and had some employees that had a hard time getting in. So yeah, it was rough up there. Greenville's right on the tip of the mountains there, heading into North Carolina. So yeah, it gets tough, but Columbia's fine. We just had some cold and wind, but when that stuff happens here, they have to prepare like it's going to happen, and they're not prepared for it to happen, so everything shuts down. But, it's 50, but, 50 here is like minus 22 up there. It seems like that's how these folks down here act, so we'll survive.
Stay bundled up. Sent you a story, and I'm anxious to hear what Rick Kaczenski drove to high school when it was National Letter of Intent Day. I ask that because Eric Dickerson, in his memoir, finally gave us a little bit of the full Monty about the infamous A&M Trans Am.
Yeah, I had my senior year, I had a 67 Buick Special with a 300 nail head in it. But it was hot rodded up. It was a cool car, but I had a pretty good job in high school. I had a 66 Nova, too, that I bought with a 327 4-speed. But I paid, what I had $950 in both cars. I was a senior in high school. It's funny, I just pulled a picture out the other day, showed my son. I had neighbors had to love me. I had good parents. But, yeah, I had two cars, so 17 years old, and had two cars at the house. But, yeah. Had a 67 Buick Special I paid $150 for, and probably did a lot of legal things in that bad boy there, Schmitty. So, nobody was buying me gold Trans Ams.
Well, I was going to ask, was the Red Dragon Street legal that you were driving, my friend?
Pennsylvania's pretty strict with inspection. I didn't have any exhaust past the header, so I had headers. Basically, it sounded like a drag. It sounded fast, but it was slow. It was a slow car, but that sounded cool. It was maroon with a black interior, and ended up painting it black. But yeah, the Nova. I never got the Nova out of primer.
Okay.
Never got the Nova out of primer, but that was kind of the look back then. It was cool, but yeah, had some brake problems. But yeah, neither car was street. There wasn't a whole lot legal on either one of those cars.
Rick Kaczenski's with us. Well, I chuckle at the Eric Dickerson story. We got to interview Dickerson, years back for the Remington Award. He was the guest speaker, and he trashed Texas for like 5 minutes. And then I asked him about A&M, and he said, next question. So he didn't want to go into the A&M. But, brother, you've heard it all, I'm sure, on the recruiting trail and just, in the coaching fraternity about just some whoppers and some true stories. And then back in the old Southwest Conference, man, it had to be the Wild West. Obviously it was.
Schmidt Rock. All due respect. It was for anybody to think that this hasn't happened at their institution.
I get
They're
it.
Out of their minds. Oh, yeah.
Some are worse or better at covering up than others is what I'm saying.
Oh, God, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it was, obviously that, I think you got to look at, too, I think what magnified the success, one with Dickerson was the type of players they were getting, Craig James, Dickerson, yeah. You just go down the list. And, where was SMU prior to that? I mean,
3-9.
so I think the fact that they jumped up on the map so quickly, magnified it, and that's when the NCAA actually, had a role in some things, and people feared them. And they were, they had oil money back then. You had Dallas on TV, big hats, big boots, big buckles, all that stuff, and absolutely. I mean, you heard all that stuff in coaching, and I know a lot of older coaches. There's a lot of guys that retired down here and golf down here, and get together with Coach Ford and Coach Roberts and a bunch of guys I know, and they tell stories now that they have, now that they're in witness protection, and it's amazing. I mean, literally. I'm telling you, probably one of the most honest guys I've ever met in my life is Coach Ford, and he tells a story how Georgia State troopers. He had a kid coming on a visit, and they called him from a payphone and said the Georgia State troopers weren't letting him cross in the state of South Carolina. And he let them know what their offer was. And Coach Ford said, well, God dang it. He goes, congratulations on becoming a Georgia Bulldog. that was it was just a different time. And, then, too, a lot of the stories you hear from back then were, kids, literally you could be in the kid's house on signing day. And coaches not necessarily paying the kid, but basically paying handlers to hide kids, hiding kids out in different states, hiding kids out in hotels. So it was a crazy time, man.
I remember
crazy time.
The Marcus Dupree story was, I think he was at some roadside motel with an assistant coach and his girlfriend. It wasn't 3 people to a room, all right? They had 2 cars blocking the entrance of the roadside hotel until it was sighted day. The other story that was funny, Howard Schnellenberger told me this before, years ago when he was with Florida Atlantic. He had that damn corncob pipe. Well, he'd accidentally leave his pipe, on the side of the couch, so he'd have to come back and get it, and make another visit. This was I think this was early days of Miami, right, when he was down at the U. So
that was happening a lot, but it's funny. A lot of the places that you wouldn't think that it happened, no, it happened. It happened. And a lot of these squeaky clean head coaches, they were involved. They were just a little bit cleaner about it. But
what was your sit down like with Coach Holtz?
It was pretty much by the book. It was a different time then. It wasn't necessarily about what the place could offer you. It was more about, what you could offer them. And, Coach Holtz's deal, you'd have breakfast at his house on Sunday. And, a lot of times you went on the visit before you had an offer. So, Sundays, there was guys on those visits that didn't have offers. And then, you meet with them, and I had a number just coming up. Guys would come up from his basement and, they'd say, yeah, he didn't get an offer. I didn't get an offer. This kid got an offer, this and that. So it was a little bit nerve wracking, but I was there with my parents, and the big thing was with Coach Holtz was selling, the academics and the Catholicism and the spiritual side of it, and they're pretty good. But and then the history and the pageantry, and just to tell you the difference in time, back then Notre Dame was selling the fact that the locker room hadn't changed since Newt Rockne was the coach there in 25. Jeez. If you did that now, kids would be looking at it like, man, these facilities are terrible. Well, we looked at that was, man, it was history to us. It was, man, this locker room hasn't changed in all these years. This is great. Where now it would be considered it would be considered a terrible locker room and a terrible facility. So it was just a different time, different mentality. But it was just pretty straight up. But I was, I did a lot of visits. My junior year, my dad took me a bunch of places. So I had met a lot of these coaches, and been going through the process with my brother at Penn State. I just, when you're sitting with these coaches and when you go into these places, you're to be honest with you, you're just wondering if you're ever going to play, if you're good enough. And, that's what all I was thinking. But really with Coach Holtz was, pretty much by the book, man. Academics and, the Catholicism, and we got a chance to win a national championship in the next 4 years. You're here, and that was it. But pretty straightforward, man. Me and my parents, but I was fortunate. He offered me. I came upstairs, and I think Mark Edwards was a guy on that visit. Him and I. A guy that was in my wedding, Mike Dowdy, another guy that was in my wedding, Jeff Kilgreen. Probably about 5 guys that ended up in my wedding were on that official visit, and that was a big part of the reason I committed to Notre Dame. Because, prior to that, I wasn't going to Notre Dame. My high school coach was one of the winningest coaches in the state of Pennsylvania at the time. He had never had a player go to Notre Dame, so part of my reasoning for visiting was, kind of an obligation to him, but I was going to visit, and that was that. A couple days there and get the hell out. I think it was 6 degrees and snowing on my visit. And I'm like, man, this is crazy, but it all works out. All works out for a reason. But even after I committed, back then when you committed, you committed. That was it. I mean, there was no talking to any coaches. I came in. I remember coming in that Monday. I sat down with my guidance counselor and my head coach, and we start calling schools and telling them that I committed to Notre Dame and thanking them for recruiting me. I mean, that's just how it was done back then.
Who all?
How the times changed.
Oh, now it's portal, and now it's 12th hour.
I didn't have any adult males that didn't coach football calling me on Saturday nights, that's for sure. That's kind of creepy. But,
Rick Kaczenski's with us.
Me.
No DM. No DM.
No.
Good stuff from Kaz. We'll spend a few more minutes with Coach Kaczenski, dive into some NFL Tuesday with Kaz. Hail Varsity Radio. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Rick Kaczenski's with us. Hail Varsity Radio Tuesdays with Kaz. A thought here. Nebraska, speaking of recruiting, Nebraska's done pretty well in the portal. With some of their acquisitions, they were able to get both quarterbacks. They had targeted Purdy from Florida State, and of course Thompson from Texas. On top of the 3 they have that they'll go into spring with and battle and try and get things to shake out. And interested to get your take here on just how you would rep it to get a clean look. I mean, you've got a new offensive coordinator, and when you go into spring, how do you get everyone a fair evaluation, yet move the offense, the newness, right, on the offensive staff forward? How do you get a clean look at everything you need to look at, but also move the offense forward versus just one position?
Yeah, well, I think the offense doesn't move forward unless you have that one position.
Sure.
So I think the most important thing, especially with the new offense being installed, the guy who's got the command of the huddle and the guy who's working with the offensive coordinator on a day-to-day basis. I mean, that guy is going to control a lot of the success or lack thereof of the offense moving forward. But I think when you look at Nebraska and where they're at, I think they got a pretty good idea where they're at on the perimeter, where they're at on the offensive line. Running back should fall off a log, and Nebraska should have 3. I mean, it should be that easy. I mean, come on, man. Don't tell me you can't find a running back. So I'm sure there's one in the building there. But you got to find you a quarterback. I think they know what they got on campus right now. So even I don't know. Those guys will get a fair amount of reps, the guys they have on campus. But I think they know what they have. They know the arm strength. They know what they can do. If you're a good quarterback, the system doesn't make you a good quarterback. right? Good quarterbacks make the system. So, I'm not quite as concerned about the system or the offense. It's okay. Who's the quarterback? And when it comes to the quarterback, it's not just being able to throw the football downfield. There's a lot more. The guy's got to like you. The guy's got to have confidence in you. You're the leader on the field. So I think it's more than just finding who's got the liveliest arm, who throws the best ball. I think there's a lot more going to that. So I think when you look at Nebraska, they already know what they got on campus as far as that. And you're going to have two guys coming in that new. Now, Schmidt, for part of my ignorance, what's the age difference in the Thompson kid and the Purdy kid?
Purdy's a kid that was in 2019, 2020 freshman, and then Casey's got 2 years. He's 23-year-old, started about, most of last year, and he's, 30 games, 19 touchdowns. So you've got some spacing between the two, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, so if you got some, but still, though, I don't think spacing, to be honest, matters anymore.
Look at all the portal.
You're going to end up with two. Yeah, guys want to be the guy. That's why they're in the portal to begin with. So and I know that's I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth by asking you that question, and then giving you this response.
No, you're good.
I still think you're going to end up with two quarterbacks leaving after spring ball, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think probably, I don't want to speak for coaches, but it doesn't take long to know who your guy is, man.
Mm-hmm.
And then what you got to do is refine. That's so when you start talking about reps, you can figure out pretty early if this is your guy or not, and then it's all refinement, man. I don't think that's any different. I think the refinement takes a little bit longer at that quarterback position, but I think a big, on this level, any position, it didn't take me long. I knew Malik Collins was going to be a good player before he knew where to line up. I just knew, okay, once he knows where to line up and he knows he's going to become an even better player, and then you just go on down the line like that. But that's a position that just takes a little bit more, obviously, time and refinement to the details because you're in charge of so much and have so much on your plate. But as far as reps, I just don't. I think they're going to know pretty quickly. Probably after that first scrimmage. You got a pretty good idea, who your guy is going to be, and then who you're working with, and then you'll find out what two quarterbacks are going to be in the portal after spring ball.
Rick Kaczenski's with us. Hail Varsity Radio Tuesdays with Kaz. Kaz, we'll wind down with this. Going on to the second round of the NFL playoffs. Give me the quarterback you'd ride with here. Are you an Aaron Rodgers guy? Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen? What are you feeling here? As it's,
I can tell you, I'm not a Mahomes guy because his brother's such a freaking jag-off. But I like Mahomes. But I have to root against him because his brother. I'm just kidding.
You're not wrong.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah.
I love Mahomes too, but they need to trank dart his brother and drag him away.
Yeah. It's amazing what Rodgers has done, especially this year. But I think once again, though, this is when you look at the playoff teams, right? And we've said this on the show before. We've talked about it on all levels, right? Everybody wants this great quarterback in college football. How many great quarterbacks are there? Maybe two, maybe three. Look at the NFL guys. There's not many great quarterbacks. Guess who's in the playoffs? The teams with the great quarterbacks, right? Right. So, I don't know if the Bengals got a chance, but it's the first playoff win in 31 years because they got a great quarterback. I don't know if they got the rest of the pieces, but how do you go against Brady, right? How do you go against him? But let me tell you, Aaron Rodgers, he's kind of got that gunslinger to him, that kind of like that Favre, and just kind of the way, I don't know, I like that team right now more than, and I don't watch, I'm not sitting down in front of the TV watching. It's kind of like background noise for me. Mm-hmm. But I have watched some of the playoff stuff, and I just think, man, Green Bay is kind of hitting on all cylinders right now. But I don't know how the hell you count out Tom Brady ever.
He's incredible, and that was a horrible omission on my part, but it wasn't intentional. He's always there, last stand in. He's incredible, but what a second round it'll be. Kaz, get to feeling better, brother. Thanks for gutting this out with us and talking some recruiting and Trans Ams and first cars and signing days and all of that. And we'll do this again next Tuesday, brother, if you're feeling like it.
Of course. All right, man. Thanks for having me.
Rick Kaczenski, Hail Varsity Radio. Good stuff from Kaz. Mahomes has just got to be like, dude, here's a $500,000 house. I'm going to put you in an acreage somewhere near Overland Park.
Just send him to Alaska.
Stay away. You want to give him the Jesse Pinkman treatment? Hey, you're wanted.
Hey, call this vacuum repair shop for me.
And here's a new license. Welcome to Nebraska.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
What final time tomorrow on the show? Andy Markowski back with us. Talk some Husker hoops, men and women's. We'll run down Mike Babcock, Shuey, a Jock Doc. Big thanks to Coach Kaczenski today, Mitch Sherman, and Steve Marik with us. So the odds are out in Vegas. You have Rich Bisaccia, the interim head coach, who really did a pretty good job. If you just think about all the BS that Vegas went through with Gruden, and then is it Ruggs? For
Ruggs and Arnett kind of both have their issues.
Ruggs and Arnett, and still got to the postseason. You've got an inconsistent quarterback. Not that he is the problem, but he's more talented with his arm and his legs, and he doesn't deliver a lot of wins compared to his skill level, in my humble opinion. So you have Vegas looking around. Someday I'll get that right. Jim Harbaugh, per the Vegas odds makers, are saying, look, the Michigan coach is a 2-1 favorite to land the job. That's pretty good odds. And if I'm Harbaugh, do I go there? Do I look at some other openings? Mike Tomlin's 4-1, but Pittsburgh's kind of like the mafia. Once you get in, you really never get out. and then there's that. You have Miami that's open. And it's interesting to see where Vegas goes.
I thought it was interesting that Vegas let Mike Mayock go. That's. I mean,
They've
get
whiffed on their first. I mean, Jacobs is good. I mean, I think he's been fine. Their first round picks have been a bit of a nightmare.
And he's had issues clearly identifying character in the draft process.
He doesn't care.
That's what I'm. But can we talk about how quickly he turned around this Vegas team? They were, for a decade, one of the worst teams in the NFL alongside the Cleveland Browns. Mm-hmm. And when he stepped into the job, he was able to take them from worst team in the AFC West to a playoff team in 3 years.
Yeah, they were a perennial like 4-12, 5-11.
Yeah,
they got good draft picks. Their first round guys were not character guys, but they were talented guys. And where they've made their money is fourth round and above.
I mean, look what he's done with those guys, though. Darren Waller, Max Crosby. There's just
Hunter
Renfrow. There's so many guys in that
Crosby's
roster.
a fifth round guy. And Crosby and Waller are both rehab guys too. Bless their heart. I mean, coming back from alcohol abuse like they were involved in. So yeah, I mean, Mayock's. Here's the thing: Mayock had a good working relationship with Gruden. I mean, they were on the same page, and just quite frankly, some of their Bama guys haven't panned out. Leatherwood's kind of a nightmare. Where you drafted him at tackle, now he's playing guard. Ruggs is a freaking disaster with his decision to get behind the wheel and then do nothing while someone perishes on fire. Mm-hmm. Let's throw away the key worthy. So once Gruden left, this thing could have been 3-14. So I'd consider the guy that kept the ship from hitting more icebergs. But if you can go get a guy as talented as Harbaugh, maybe you do it. Back tomorrow at 4. Thanks.